Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. This is a webinar where we're going to talk about Lyme disease. I look forward to seeing what the webinar is and how you create it tonight with your own questions. For those of you that are returning, welcome back. I see a number of familiar names on my message board, and I also see that we have a lot of new people here tonight, too. So everyone, the way that you can participate in this webinar is two ways. Number one, you can listen to the questions as I read them and I post them on the screen and what the responses are that I give to those. The other thing you could do is actually write a question to me. And the way to do that is to click on the question mark icon in the chat box area. You have to click on that question mark icon first. If you are trying to leave questions for me by not doing that, I'm not going to see them. So you need to click on that question mark icon first, okay? And then I ask that you write these as brief questions. This is a forum where it gets kind of complicated to get into very, very difficult stuff that are long questions, okay? So try to be shorter with those questions as well, too. And then when you're done writing that question, click your enter key, and that will send a complete question to me. You won't be able to see that question on your side of the screen anymore after you do that, though. During the webinar tonight, I am creating a recording, as I always do, and 99.999% of the time, the recording works, and I'm able to get it edited and post it and send it to you in the morning. I hope that goes as planned tonight. So sometime later this evening, I'll be doing a quick edit of that video. And then tomorrow morning, usually around 9:30 in the morning, I'm able to send an email out to you notifying you that the recording is ready to be viewed. And you can see that actually at my Lyme disease information site, the treatlyme.net or Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. Okay, you can find that on the webinars page. So if you happen to not get the email in the morning, just go to my webinars page at treatlyme.net, scroll down to where you can see the webinar recordings, and you'll be able to take a look at it there, okay? Also, in that email tomorrow, you'll have an ability to sign up for the next webinar, which is next week. And tonight begins the series of 3 webinars. So I'll be doing one in each tonight and then in the next 2 weeks after that as well, too. Okay. So without any further ado, we'll get, one other thing. So during the webinar tonight, I actually will be posting the questions that people have written on the screen as I'm reviewing them, okay? Or as I'm reading them. Keep in mind that in the recorded version, they don't show up. So I will be actually reading them so that the people in the recorded version can know what we're talking about as well, too. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. All right. First question is from Dave. Hi, Dave. Let's see. Hello, Dr. Ross. I hope you had a great time visiting your dad. Yeah, thank you. I was actually, everyone may know it, last week I was out in Colorado Springs where I drove out with my 2 Basenjis. We did a road trip, and I was checking in on my 90-plus-year-old dad who's in assisted living. It was good to see him. A little complicated there, but it was good to see him. And then coming back out, I actually was able to get down to the Grand Canyon and down to Zion. So those are beautiful areas to have refreshed my soul on the way back up here again. So thank you for asking about that. Let's see. I successfully was able to get rid of mold toxicity. My levels are normal now via real-time labs. My question is the following. Is it possible to get reinfected with mold again? I'm now concerned that if I enter an older house or a building that may have mold, I will get sick again. Since there is no way of knowing whether there is mold or a history of water damage prior to entering the premises, how should I protect myself? I can't live in a bubble, and I guess I'm a little paranoid now. It was a horrible experience dealing with black mold toxins. As always, thank you for all you do for us. Okay, yeah, I'd be glad to help you look at that. So first of all, I want to let you know, I want to clarify the way you wrote this question, a point about the way you wrote this question. So you said you're worried about getting infected again. So I want to let you know that when people have mold toxicity issues, there are 2 things that can happen with that. Number one, they, oops, hold on here a minute.
Please enter the group number that you wish to page. Follow.
All right, hopefully that won't ring again. So the major problem that most people have is that they breathe in the mold toxins, not the germs, and those toxins get trapped inside of them. Okay, that's what happens in everyone with mold toxicity issues. Okay. In addition, a small percentage of people also breathe in mold spores from the environment. And those mold spores sometimes can start inhabiting their nose passages, maybe their intestines, and they start producing the toxins, and you become your own toxin brew pub, okay? So everyone with mold toxin issues has mold toxins trapped in them, but it's not everyone that actually gets infected by the mold. Is actually quite a small percentage, all right? So to kind of make sure we're on the same page about that, what happens in mold toxicity issues is 25% of people have a genetic predisposition where when they breathe in a mold toxin and it gets into the bloodstream, their immune system does not break it down. Okay, what's supposed to happen, and 75% of us, is our immune system will see that mold toxin. Some of our white blood cells will see it. They'll place a tag on it, and then other parts of the immune system will come in and break those mold toxins down. They never bother us, okay? So like me, I'm one of those 75%. I could walk into a building full of toxin cloud, walk through it, and never be bothered because my immune system, when those mold toxins get into my bloodstream, will break them down, all right? But in 25% of people with mold toxicity issues, what happens is those mold toxins don't get broken down. The next line of defense that the body has, if the immune system doesn't work, is the liver is supposed to be able to take things that are fat-based toxins like mold toxins, which are fat-based, and the liver is supposed to transform them into a water-soluble chemical. And if the liver were able to do that, these water-soluble chemicals would go out into the intestines, mix in our poop, and we'd poop them out, and we'd never be bothered again. However, that doesn't happen either. The liver is not able to transform these toxins. So these toxins leave the liver as a fat-based toxin. They go out into the intestines, and then they get reabsorbed again, okay? In my experience, in my practice, about 90% of the time, all I need to do with the person with mold toxicity issue is put them on about 6 months or so of binders that will grab hold of those toxins in the intestines. And that gets rid of their problem. And I never have to do anything to treat for mold spores that start producing their own toxins in the nose passages or in the intestines. Okay, so the majority of people, I never put them on germ killers for mold. They never get infected by the mold, but rather they just have the toxins trapped in them. Okay, all right. So what I would do in a situation like you're in, what I usually will do with my patients is two things. Number one, some of my patients, I'll have a discussion with them, and because they are so concerned about being re-exposed in their environment again, what we may choose to do is to leave them on a low dose of a binder all the time. So for instance, and again, everyone, binders are things that grab hold of those mold toxins in the intestines, okay? So a common thing we might use, for instance, is a product by Biobotanical Research called GI Detox that has in it clay. It has in it activated charcoal, some silica. I think it's got some chlorella in there as well too. But it's got a number of agents in it that can grab hold of various mold toxins, all right? And I might, during course of a treatment, get a person up to 2 of those twice a day. If I'm trying to do just maintenance to keep up with anything new that comes in from the environment and remove it, I might just have them take 1 of those a day, for instance, okay? So that's one option, all right? Another option is to see what your body's telling you. And if you start noticing you're starting to feel mold toxic again, then start your binders and do them until you feel good, okay? So for instance, one of the sickest patients I've ever taken care of with mold toxicity is a patient of mine way back, from the beginning when I first started working with mold toxicity. And basically she was had gotten infected with Lyme. She had a tick bite in New Zealand, had classic Lyme disease symptoms, but we could only get about 5% better with antibiotics. And we did this for like 2.5 years. And at that time, I learned about mold toxicity issue and told her before our next visit, I wanted her to just try to take some cholestyramine, which is a binder. And this is a woman that had daily seizures, pain so severe that narcotics could not manage the pain, severe fatigue, just was not mobile at all, okay? And in the course of a month before I saw her and she was on the cholestyramine, she got 70% better and eventually got 100% well, okay? And her, in retrospect, I think the issue was she had Lyme, which put her over the edge. But we learned, and she was able to look back and remember that in the building she was staying at when she was doing missionary work in New Zealand, that there was black mold on the walls. All right. So in her situation, I think probably the primary problem was actually black mold, and that she got her tick bite and the toxins from the tick put her over the top. And even though we probably had knocked those down, she was still swimming in mold toxins and Lyme toxins. And the next thing we need to do is get those out of her. Okay. What she does now in her life at this time is she can go months, a year or more and do great. And all of a sudden things will start creeping up. She'll start getting fatigued, a little achy here and there. And what she'll do is about a week or so of cholestyramine and be back in good state of health again. Okay. So she kind of designs it as what her symptoms tell her as well too. So I think you got two options here, Dave. One, be on like a daily dose of a GI detox, for instance, one pill one time a day, or wait and see what your body tells you. And then if you need to add things back in a little more aggressively periodically, depending if you start building toxins up, if your body tells you to do it, go ahead and do it then. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Dave. Thanks for that question. All right. So everyone, for those of you that are not as familiar with mold toxicity that are here for a first time, let me just go ahead and show you a big article you can read about mold toxicity that I have on my Lyme disease information site. All right. So let's see here. All right. So this is my Lyme disease information site. Take a look at this section called detoxification. And the article that I have on mold toxin illness, mold toxicity is here. In this article, I describe what mold toxicity illness is, like I just did. And I also talk about which type of binders you would use based on what kind of toxins you have showing up, okay? So if you want to read more, you can take a look at it in this article here, all right? All right. Hello, Rich. Let's see. These webinars are fantastic and have been a huge help to me. Thanks for sharing that, Rich. I'm glad you're getting some benefit out of them. You sell Nutramedix Cemento on your website, which is a type of cat's claw that is TOA free. I have heard that one of the reasons that this product is so effective is that it is TOA free. But taking this product with a regular cat's claw tincture, which is TOA negative, negate the benefits of the Cemento. What dose would you typically recommend to take Cemento? Does being TOA free make it quite a bit better than regular cat's claw? So Rich, I think that the TOA free thing is a marketing gimmick. Yes, a gimmick that Nutramedix has come up with. In fact, the master herbalist Buhner disputes that using TOA free is better. And Buhner is a great herbalist. I mean, many of you may have heard about the Buhner protocol. Buhner writes regularly about herbal medicines, et cetera, and he takes great issue with Nutramedix and the fact that TOA is better. Okay, and I actually do too. I think it's I don't agree with it. I'll put it that way. So if you happen to buy what they say, which again is a big marketing gimmick as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there would be any issue with mixing a TOA type cat's claw with it. In my own practice, although I have recently carried Cemento, the Nutramedix product, with my own patients, I recommend the Montana Farmacy product that I carry at my website. I carry a whole line of herbal antibiotic tinctures by Montana Farmacy, and their cat's claw has TOA in it, okay? And probably coming up soon, because I just philosophically disagree with what Nutramedix does with that, I have a limited supply of their Cemento and a limited supply of their Banderol, and I'm basically going to stop carrying their products. I think they've become a little bit too marketing heavy, and I don't think that in general, the Cowden protocol, I think there's better ways of treating Lyme than the Cowden protocol, and so I'm actually going to stop representing their products as soon as I think sell about 2 more bottles of Banderol, maybe about 2 more bottles of Cemento. So just so you know where my biases are, I'm not a big believer in the Cowden protocol. And I appreciate, and I actually don't like the gimmicks that Nutramedix has used to try to promote some of their products as well too. So there's my opinion. Yes, that's an opinion, I know. But I hope that gives you some information there. Okay. All right. Thanks for that. The other problem I have with Nutramedix is they're just so expensive. I mean, it's outrageous what they charge for their bottle of cat's claw when you can get it for half the price by Montana Farmacy. Same with the Atoba product that they have, which is their Banderol. You can get it at less than half the price through Montana Farmacy. I don't know what they're doing that they think is so special that they can charge the rates that they do for their herbs. So if you're looking for alternatives, at least on the cat's claw, Hutania, and also on the Atoba, take a look at the Montana Pharmacy products that I carry at Marty Ross MD Supplements. In fact, I'll show you that page here in just a second. Okay? All right. Thanks for that question, Rich. Good luck to you. All right. So many of you know this is my supplement stores, Marty Ross MD Supplements. This is where my patients get the products I recommend. And if you're looking for quality products, when I talk generically about curcumin, for instance, you can see what curcumin do I carry here. I've tried to be very careful about the products I select based on efficacy, purity, and the fact that they don't put a lot of garbage in these products as well, too. All right. So in terms of this Montana Farmacy line that I was telling you about, at this point, I'm carrying Montana Farmacy, essentially most of the products that make up the Buhner herbal protocol. But in here also, I was able to work with Montana Farmacy to have them start producing their own Otoba bark. I told them that was a key part of my protocol, and that I would appreciate if they would start making Otoba bark, and they have. And so that's this product here. And as you can see, for a 2-ounce bottle, it's $25. And I think Nutramedix, is like $60 plus or something. So it's a effective product, but a lot less costly. All right. All right. Thanks. All right. Let's see here. So next question is from Dave. Hi, Dave. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I had another doctor tell me that the best way to recover from a chronic illness like Lyme is to just live a healthy lifestyle, such as eating healthy, getting some sun exposure, and going to bed early. He does not want me to take any herbal Lyme supplements other than Japanese knotweed, which he likes for general good health. What are your thoughts about someone healing from Lyme just by living a very healthy lifestyle, but not specifically treating for Lyme and co-infections? Have you ever seen anyone get dramatically better from Lyme just by living a healthy lifestyle? So Dave, I guess it's about degrees of the illness. And let me, to degrees of severity. How sick are you? Okay. So I have seen that if you were to lead a healthy lifestyle, that effectively helps the immune system work better, and people with mild symptoms of Lyme and co-infections, that might be all it takes. And that would be doing things like getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, exercising regularly, taking stress out of your life, maybe eating a paleo type diet or eating a Mediterranean type diet. It is possible that those actions would be enough to get the immune system working well enough to deal with Lyme and co-infections. I want to caution you. I'm only saying that might work in people that have mild to minimum symptoms, okay? All right. I have not seen such approaches work for people with more moderate to severe symptoms. And in fact, if we look at published research that was conducted by LymeDisease.org, has a project called My Lyme Data. They've enrolled now, I guess, up to, I think they now have about 16,000 people enrolled in their data bank. But basically what My Lyme Data is a data bank of people with Lyme. And to enter the data bank, they all have to fill out some questionnaires about themselves. And then periodically, My Lyme Data will go ahead and do a query to learn something about Lyme disease from these people in their data bank. A couple of years ago, they did it's 2 years ago now. They published their findings of a study where they asked people what it is that got them well, and they broke people down into what are called high responders, and then another category that's a little less responsive but still good. So people that got better or really got well. Okay, and what they found in that study, and they asked people, did they use prescription antibiotics, did they use alternative medicines, or did they do both? And what they found is the people that had the greatest chance of getting better were people that used prescription antibiotics, okay? Not people that used alternative medicine like lifestyle modifications by itself, but prescription antibiotics. And I'll show you that study. You can go through and read it a little bit more on your own. They did a subsequent study where they asked people with Lyme disease about various alternative medicine treatments that they had used. And they found that overwhelmingly most, other than herbal antibiotics, that probably most other alternative medicine approaches to getting well worked at most maybe about 40% of the time, but often much less than that, okay? So I'm going to show you both where I've written an article about all of that, but I want to let you know their findings actually kind of back up what I'm trying to say, which is for the majority of people, you're going to need to do something to kill your germs. And it's going to have to be either herbal or prescription antimicrobials, not just not lifestyle things that support the immune system. Okay, so let me show that article to you. Let's see. Okay, so this is the article. It's called What Works? Navigating Prescription and Alternative Medicine Lyme Treatments. Although I don't think they quite broke out just diet and exercise alone here, but you'll get the gist of it. So take a look at this article. In here, I even have charts that were provided to me by My Lyme Data, which breaks all this information down. And this table right here, for instance, talks about various alternative treatments and did it make a difference for them at all or not, okay? I would urge everyone, after you read this article, take a look at my special thanks section down here. Lorraine Johnson is a lawyer that is with My Lyme Data, has actually spearheaded most of their research work. She's done a great job. And down here, I thank her for this information because I think she's doing a great job. But also, I would encourage all of you to enroll yourselves in My Lyme Data. Click this link right here so that you can become part of this data set that she's trying to put together to try to help people get better. Okay? All right. Thanks, Dave. Good luck to you. Let's see here. Hello, Gail. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I wrote about this several months ago and you suggested acupuncture. I passed a kidney stone on December 21st. Pain is horrible. When I sit at all, I feel like something is being compressed, pinched, aching, and stabbing. Can't sit. I have been fully worked up by various specialists, nothing found. Only thing is enlarged ovarian veins. What could cause pain? Which could cause pain? But they have been seen as an incidental finding on scans since 2005, and I never had pain. A nerve block is being suggested. I'm concerned as that steroid injection, but in dire need of intervention. 1, how bad is it to get a steroid nerve block with active tick-borne infections? And how much gets in systemically? Number 2, can BART cause vascular compressions like nutcracker syndrome or damage the ovarian veins? And number 3, can BART cause acquired Ehrlos Danlos syndrome, don't think I have, but maybe going on like this just isn't doable. So first of all, in terms of whether BART can give you the nutcracker syndrome and damage to the veins, I don't know. I haven't seen any data to say that. I'm not saying I can't. I just honestly don't know. In terms of your question about steroids, so in general, when somebody has Lyme disease, we do not recommend systemic steroids. That would be the kind you take either orally or they inject in your veins. And the issue is that when you do systemic steroids, you get into immune suppression that may allow Lyme to grow more aggressively and maybe even the co-infections, okay? But what you're asking about is not systemic steroids. You're talking about steroids that are a very small amount of steroids that are deposited in near the nerve, for instance. Now, I will tell you that this kind of treatment like you're describing, where you get a limited deposit of the steroids, is not as severe of a threat as taking oral prednisone, for instance, or getting IV steroids injected in your veins, okay? It's not as great of a threat, but it still may, some of that may still go systemic. So I would say, and what I usually advise my own patients in a situation like this is, if there is nothing else you can do for a medical problem you have that's really bothersome to you, and it requires steroids, use them. And that we will try to take care of the Lyme as best we can with the antimicrobials, all right? That opinion that I just said, though, is something you should share and discuss with your own doctor. Don't do this based upon my response. You need to talk to your own doctor about that because I don't know all the ins and outs of your case, okay? All right? But I can share with you what I tell my own patients. And then can BART cause Ehrlos Danlos syndrome? So I don't know that it causes it. Could it be a factor? I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you. I know Lyme can be, because Lyme releases enzymes that can break down connective tissue like cartilage and the things that hold your tissues together, fibrous material that holds your tissues together. Ehrlos Danlos syndrome basically is a situation where the tissues that connect your joints together get loose and lax, and that causes cracking and pain around those joints. Could Lyme be a part of that? Probably. Could Bartonella? It may. I just haven't seen any data that says it does, okay? But I guess it's possible because Bartonella, as you know, Bartonella gives you, some people, those scratch mark, stretch mark looking rashes. And what that's caused by is Bartonella enzymes breaking down connective tissue as well, too. So it probably can. I just haven't seen any data to say that it does, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Gail. Hello, Patsy. Hi, Dr. Ross. My friend's doctor told her that there's no such thing as chronic Lyme. It was invented by the media. What research would you suggest her doctor read to prove otherwise? So I would take a look at a book that was published by Brian Fallon, Dr. Brian Fallon, who runs the Columbia University Lyme Disease Center. And let's look at it together, because there's a section in his book where he reviews the science that says that Lyme can be chronic, okay? It's not an extensive amount of science, but there is science that shows that this germ is something that can live on and be chronic, all right? And he kind of gives a balanced perspective. He's not in the camp that says it's always chronic, and he's not in the camp that says it's always acute. He kind of straddles the middle with his viewpoint, but he does have a section in that book where he reviews the science to suggest that this is an illness that can be chronic and not effectively wiped out by antibiotics always, okay? Let's research what his book is together here. I'm going to do a quick screen share. All right, so his book is called Conquering Lyme Disease. And there is a section in here where he does review some of the science that suggests that this can be a chronic infection in people. Okay, so take a look at that. Let's see. All right. Thanks for that question. Good luck. Hello, Jim. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks so much for answering our questions. You're welcome. See, I'm having a problem with irritation when I urinate. I've done 2 lab tests for urine bacteria. Both have been negative. It seems there is a bacteria or other gut pathogen involved, though, that didn't show on the test. I can often feel my gut turning in a way that is similar to other times I've had bacterial infection in the gut, and there is some gassiness. Also, every time I take a new natural antimicrobial, it seems to flare the problem and cause more irritation. Increasing vitamin D also aggravated the problem. I'm taking quercetin, glucosamine, cranberry, and mannose, and they seem to be mitigating the problem a bit, but it's still a problem. Any thoughts on what to do? So one of the things that will not always show up on a urine test, but that this could be, is you can get a yeast infection of the urethra. And what makes me wonder about that is that the problem gets worse when you're on antibiotics, either herbal antibiotics here, which would make it easier for yeast in the urethra to grow more. Okay. Also, having a lot of irritability, gassiness, or this kind of feeling you're getting in your gut is something sometimes we will see if you have too many yeast growing in the intestines too. So that's an idea that you might want to explore with your physician. In situations like this, sometimes if I'm wondering if it's yeast in the urethra, will just treat for yeast by using a combination of nystatin and also diflucan, prescription medicines, about 30 days of diflucan, 200 milligrams 1 time a day, nystatin, 2 pills 2 times a day. Obviously, to get that prescription, you're going to need to talk to your doctor and see what they think, okay? Alternatively, if I'm wondering if it is anti-yeast, I sometimes will use anti-fungal herbs to see if they'll make a difference. Antifungal herbs that I like using a combination product called Capri Plus by a company called Karuna. And it has in it caprylic acid, garlic, and some oregano oil as well too. And the way I usually dose that is 2 pills twice a day. But again, this is something you should talk with your physicians about before you decide what to do. But work with them to consider, could this be yeast in the urethra? Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Jim. Thank you for that question. Hello, SJ. A few questions. Is ferritin of 45 low for 40-year-old female? Number 2, what sorts of issues would cause an otherwise healthy 80-year-old whose only complaint is constipation to lose weight? Nothing in his dietary exercise routine has changed. And number 3, would you recommend bladder ease to women who suffer from interstitial cystitis, D-mannose? Thank you, kind doctor. I appreciate being called kind. Thank you. So first of all, ferritin, everyone, is the storage form of iron and is a better indicator of whether you have low iron in you or not in you. It's better than actually measuring serum ferritin level or serum iron levels. Ferritin is a more accurate indicator, okay? Generally, we want to keep it at about 40 or higher. And so 45 is fine. I don't see anything wrong with that for a 40-year-old female, okay? In terms of your 80-year-old, figuring out weight loss is too complicated to do with a brief question like this. This is something I would need I have a lot of questions I would need to ask about lifestyle, about medications, about are they filling up, are they having diarrhea? I mean, the whole host of things. So that's not going to be something I can answer in this kind of a forum. Okay. All right. And then number 3, so in terms of interstitial cystitis, everyone, what interstitial cystitis is inflammation of the lining of the bladder that is not caused by a regular bacterial bladder infection. Okay. And where we tend to see that happen is in Bartonella. We also tend to see it happen sometimes in Lyme. When it's there, we tend to think more Bartonella, but it can happen in Lyme as well too. The symptoms of it are similar to a bladder infection. People have a lot of urge to pee, frequency of peeing, burning on urination. Those are things that make you think of interstitial cystitis. In terms of what is useful herbally for it, because again, it's not caused by an infection in the urine per se. I mean, it can be caused by Lyme and Bartonella, and if you have those, you should treat those. But things you can do to calm the bladder while you're waiting for those antimicrobial treatments to work is 2 things can be very helpful. Number 1, glucosamine sulfate, and number 2, quercetin. Both of those are found in a product called Bladder Ease that you just wrote about, okay? So what quercetin does is it is a bioflavonoid that many of you may be familiar with because it helps in mast cell activation syndrome. It helps stabilize allergic type reactions. And it does that by stabilizing mast cells where histamines are made. But the other thing that quercetin does is it's very effective at blocking inflammation cytokine production in the bladder lining. Okay, so that's your anti-inflammatory. And then what the glucosamine sulfate does is in the bladder, it's turned into a microscopic gelatinous coat that covers the lining of the bladder so that the acidity of your urine doesn't irritate and further inflame the lining of the bladder. All right. Now, you can either just get those as separate supplements, in which case you would dose your quercetin, which comes as a 250 milligram pill. You would dose it at 2 of those 250 milligram pills 3 times a day. And the glucosamine sulfate, you would dose at 500 milligrams or 1 pill 3 times a day. Okay. And if you're going to do that, I'd like the product made by Thorne for each of those. I find it to be an effective product. All right. The other option is to use this Bladder Ease, which is made by a company called Vitanica. And it has in it glucosamine sulfate. It also has in it quercetin, and it has something called L-arginine in it as well too. If you're to do it that way, you want to take 4 pills 3 times a day. Okay, you'll have to see how the cost factors work out on that, depending on which way you do that. But those are the things that you can do. The D-mannose, I don't think is going to give you much help. So D-mannose is a sugar that is useful in people that get repeat bladder infections due to E. coli. There's a situation, especially in women, where some people's urethra, some women that is, that get recurrent bladder infections, what we think happens is that their urethra tissue is more sticky, if you will, and holds on to E. coli, bacteria that normally works its way up from the intestinal tract into the bladder. And so if you take D-mannose, it makes that the urethra lining less sticky and for E. coli, and therefore the E. coli can't gain a foothold, okay? But I don't see that as being useful in a situation like you're describing here, all right? Thanks for the question, SJ. Good luck to you. Let me just do a quick screen share here for you. All right, so in terms of that Bladder Ease, if you're wondering the all-in-one instead of having to do it as 2 products, this is the Bladder Ease, again, that's sold by Vitanica, okay? And actually, I think this is going to be a much lower cost way of going compared to doing independent quercetin and glucosamine, but you'd have to price it out, okay? All right. Hello, Vera. Hi, Dr. Ross. Last time you talked about using olive leaf extract, Proboost, and Reishi to fight a viral infection. If someone has high cytokines or an autoimmune condition, is there any danger of overstimulating the immune system with any of these supplements? I understand what you're saying, that you're concerned if autoimmune illness means overactive immune system attacking you, that these might turn on that part of the immune system that's attacking you. And the answer is, in my experience, no. I think that what these supplements do is, first of all, the grapefruit seed or the olive leaf extract, it may have a little bit of immune stimulating properties, but the majority of the way that it works is actually killing the viruses. It's a direct killing effect on the viruses. And the Proboost and the Reishi, in my experience, do not flare up autoimmune illness. Rather, they're turning on the part of the immune system that fights infection. They're not turning on the part that's involved in autoimmune illness, okay? They're separate things that they're turning on, okay? Number 2, would you suggest this regimen to help fight a breakthrough COVID infection? It's a good question. I honestly don't know. The thing is, I have greater experience working with olive leaf extract and Proboost and Reishi in treating chronic virus infections, meaning things that have gotten active that are already in a person. What you're describing probably is more of an acute infection. I honestly don't know. I can't say. I don't think you would hurt yourself in trying it, but I don't know if it'd make a difference or not. And then number 3, how long would you continue the olive leaf and reishi in response to an acute infection? So for acute, like flu or acute colds, my approach to those is to use the Proboost, Proboost is something known as thymus gland protein A. Thymus gland is an organ that sits here in the chest. And as a kid, it's really active in us. As we get to be older, it shrinks up. As adults, it's shrunk, basically, okay? But it releases this protein A that acutely turns on what is known as cell-mediated immunity, cells that fight infections, all right? And the way I like to use it for acute virus infections is to have a person take a packet of it under the tongue 3 times a day, every 2 hours on the first day. And then on the second day, take 1 packet under the tongue and let it dissolve every 8 hours. So 3 times on that second day. And then you don't take it anymore after that. Okay. So for acute virus, you use it for 2 days only. The olive leaf extract as a germ killer, I usually have people take it as 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day for up to 14 days. And reishi acutely is not really going to do much. It's too slow acting to stimulate in an acute situation. So I would recommend it for an acute infection. Let's see. Number 4, might it make sense to use the reishi and olive leaf extract as a prophylactic to help prevent a breakthrough COVID infection? And then 5, finally, would you recommend any other autoimmune safe antiviral herbs that might help against COVID? The answer is no, because we are just not aware of what actually else kills COVID. The best way to prevent COVID is the vaccination. And I know I've been clobbered here before for calling for it. So for those of you that are anti-vaxxers that want to come after me again, bring it on. But at this point, what we still know about COVID is the most effective way to prevent a bad outcome from COVID is the vaccine. And so even in people with Lyme, as you know, many of you have heard me before, people with Lyme are not having any greater problems with the vaccine than anyone else that doesn't have Lyme. LymeDisease.org did a study of that after people started getting the COVID vaccines, and it appears that people with Lyme fare no worse and fare as well as the general population when it comes to outcomes from the COVID vaccine. So my approach for COVID to prevent bad outcomes from COVID is to still recommend the COVID vaccine. That's what I still recommend, yes, to my patients with Lyme disease, mainly because the problems that occur if you get COVID and you get it, it's a much greater risk of harm from getting COVID than any risk for the average person with Lyme that could occur from getting the COVID vaccine. All right. I am interested in the new prescription antivirals. There's 2 of them that have been approved. Primarily, they're now being reserved for people that are called high risk, meaning people with autoimmune illness suppression and on immune suppressive agents. That's Plaxavid, I believe, is one of those. That's the one that has the greatest chance of working. And I would suspect as they gear up production of Plaxavid that is probably going to be used at the first signs in the whole population when people first come down with COVID symptoms, and that's what would be used. It's got good data showing it prevents hospitalization or severe outcome from being on it as well too. Okay. But at this point, I don't think we have enough in the population to give to everyone if we had the next wave of COVID that might eventually occur. All right. All right. Thanks for the question, Vera. Good luck to you. Hello, Natalie. Do you have any experience with opinions on tafenoquine for babesia? Yes, I do. So hold on here a minute, everyone. It's actually today in Seattle, it got up to about 78 degrees, I think, and it's hot in my office right now. I'm going to open a window. As long as I'm kind of near a busy street, we'll see if it's not too noisy, but I got to get some air in here. I'm starting to get too stuffy. Just a minute. So if we start hearing sirens and everything else, I'll close it, but I hope we can leave that open for a little bit. I'm getting hot. All right, let's see here. Okay, so tafenoquine, everyone. So first of all, I have republished my article on how to treat babesia. All right, I updated it a few weeks ago, and so I'll show that to you here in a minute. But yes, I am recommending tafenoquine as one of my frontline treatments. Okay, as I said, I have what I call tier 1 treatments, and that is a medication that's in that. So tafenoquine, everyone, is also known as a drug called Crintofol, and it's a medication that is known as one of the quinolines. Another quinoline is something called primaquine that I have been using for quite a long time. That's in that article as well too. Tafenoquine was released, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago now, and it has been approved for treating malaria. But in more recent studies that have been done, it's actually shown to be quite effective against Babesia microti. Okay, so what has been studied in the studies is Babesia microti. It has not been studied against Babesia decani. It has not been studied against Babesia odicoli, and it hasn't been studied against all kinds of Babesia, but the studies that we have show that it is effective against, and case studies show that it is effective against Babesia microti, okay? So I am recommending it. The issue, however, is it's really hard to get your hands on. I've been very... I'm very upset, it's probably a way of saying it, that I've got a number of people that have been failing other treatments that I've been trying to get on tafenoquine, and it's kind of hit or miss as to whether they can get their hands on it. So a standard treatment for malaria is actually just 2 pills 1 time a day, or 2 pills once, and you're done. So the pharmacies are used to giving out 2 pills. But the way I like to prescribe it for my Babesia treatments is to have people take 2 pills, 2 150 milligram pills every 2 weeks. Some situations I might do 2 pills every week, depending on how a person is doing. And the pharmacies are not set up. They're refusing to fill prescriptions for 4 pills or even 8 pills a month. So I just want to warn you, if you're going to try to get it, you're probably going to have to work to find a supply, and you might need to go back twice a month to get 2 pills each time, okay? I combine it. You're not going to use it alone. You're going to want to use it with other medications like azithromycin, and maybe even combine it with atovaquone, which is Mepron. That kind of treatment is a good approach as well too. Okay. So yeah, I've been using it. I've had some people have some good success with it when other treatments don't work. And I'm recommending it as an option of my first tier frontline treatments. Let me show you the article I have on this. All right, so if you're ever interested in seeing what's the latest stuff I've written, just click on this. Come over here to my online Lyme guide and hit this latest button over here. And I have two latest ones. One is how do you test for intestinal dysfunction, okay? But the one that I wrote before that is this one, my update to the kills Babesia, which I updated a little under a month ago now. And in here, I do describe what I call quinoline-based treatments, of which tafenoquine is one of the quinolines, okay? And I talk about what else to combine with that as well, too, all right? All right, so, yeah. So I hope that gives you some useful information there. All right, so while I'm thinking about it then, I know... So many of you are familiar. I have a book out that I published, which is a compilation of many articles I've had on my treatlyme.net. It's called Anti-Germ Action Plans for Lyme Disease and the various infections. I'm actually in the process of redrafting a new version of that book that will include updated information on Babesia and the other treatments. It will also have a section in there about, it will include my treatment protocol and include various articles I've written about how do you kill Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, yeast, viruses, etc. And in addition, I'll review various alternative treatments that some people claim are effective at reducing their Lyme germ load, and I'll give you my take on those as well too. I anticipate probably in the next month or two that will be out, but I'll let you all know when that's in one place that you can take a look at it. Most of those articles exist on my information site at this time, but it'll probably be easier to read it all in one source, and some people like to have paper. So I'm in the process of redrafting that, getting it edited, cleaning up some of the articles, and I anticipate a 1 to 2 month process to get that back out again. Okay? All right. Thanks for the question. Hello, Vera. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Given the recent research studies indicating the reactivation of Epstein-Barr as a factor in long COVID and its role in the development of MS, can you recommend any antiviral supplements against EBV? So, yeah, I can. I'm just going to make a brief comment. Epstein-Barr, I understand that's what the research is saying right now. I've been at managing these chronic fatiguing illnesses long enough to know that Epstein-Barr at times can be the good fad idea as to why things aren't doing well. So it used to be, we thought that everyone had with chronic fatigue syndrome, the reason was activation of Epstein-Barr virus, and the MS probably not so. Some of my colleagues believe strongly when somebody's not getting rid of Lyme, it must be that they have activated Epstein-Barr virus. I'm not a big believer in that. I think what happens with Epstein-Barr virus is it lives in us, all right? It lives in a great majority of people. And the majority of us, our immune systems do keep it under control. And then doctors like to try to figure out when they have people with fatigue, is it gotten active, okay? And the way that the average doctor looks at that is they don't measure virus load to figure out, do you have more virus in you? The way that most doctors look at it is they look to see, do you have more antibodies against the virus, all right? And then they interpret that as, oh, the virus must be active. I will share with you, there's another way to interpret that, which is, gosh, your immune system's doing a good job keeping it under control. And because of everything else going on in the body, it decided to fight even harder and make more antibodies to keep it under control. So I'm not always in that camp of people that say more antibodies mean the infection's more active, all right? And I've been at this long enough that I'm skeptical that even though I know the data, people are starting to say maybe it's activated Epstein-Barr. Well, we've always identified that as a reason for when we can't explain illnesses, we like to say it's always Epstein-Barr. So maybe it's true, maybe not. I think we're going to have to wait and see what research says over time. Most of us that treat chronic fatigue syndrome are not big believers that it's always Epstein-Barr anymore, for instance. Okay. All right. So I'll come off my soapbox now, but if it is due to Epstein-Barr, the things that I like to do, my treatment approach for chronic viruses like Epstein-Barr involves a few things. And I'll show you the article that I have on that here in a minute. But number one, for my virus germ killer, I like to use olive leaf extract. And I usually start people at 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And I work them up based on what they can tolerate with Herxheimer reactions to a total of 1,500 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay, that's your germ killer. All right. Then I like to do things to support the immune system. Number one, I like to be on reishi mushrooms. They turn on the cellular part of the immune system. I usually have a person take 400 milligrams of that 3 times a day. Be aware that getting Epstein-Barr and these chronic viruses under control can take about 6 months, okay? So this is a way of slowly modulating, helping your immune system do better to fight viruses, all right? The third thing I would do is consider taking thymic protein A or Proboost as 1 packet a day. Again, thymic protein A turns on your immune system to make more cells that fight virus infections. And then the fourth thing that you might want to consider as part of that regimen is to do something called transfer factors. Transfer factors are proteins that are made by some white blood cells that turn the immune system to target various germs, okay? And so they help target the immune system. And so Research Nutritionals has a product called transfer factor plasmic that has in it transfer factors against Epstein-Barr. That's one option. That would be 1 pill 2 times a day. Plasmic also has in it transfer factors against various other viruses. Another option in that transfer factor line from Research Nutritionals would be their transfer factor L+, and that also would be 1 pill 2 times a day. That has in it transfer factors against Lyme and the various co-infections, and in addition, Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus are in there as well too. Okay, all right. So that would be 1 pill twice a day. So my package would be olive leaf extract, reishi mushrooms, thymic protein A as Proboost, and then either transfer factor L+ or transfer factor plasmic. Okay, all right. Let me show you an article that you can read about this a little bit more. All right, so take a look at my article about how when and how to treat chronic viruses in Lyme. I even review in here why following antibodies is not always the best way to know if your germs have gotten active, okay? And then down here, in this section down here, I talk about olive leaf, reishi, transfer factor plasmic, and thymic protein A. An alternative that I sometimes will use to the olive leaf extract is this other herb called monolaurin if people have a hard time tolerating the olive leaf extract, okay? And then finally, many of you are familiar again with these products called transfer factors. And I know I often get questions about which transfer factor product from Research Nutritionals does what. And so take a look. These are the transfer factors from Research Nutritionals. I got 6 products. If you're ever wondering what the transfer factor product does, click on the transfer factors. And then in the description down here, in this key functions and actions section, I'll tell you what they're supposed to target, okay? So this one targets, the L+ targets Borrelia, which is Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, Ehrlichia, Epstein-Barr, human herpes virus type 6, cytomegalovirus, and chlamydia, okay? All right, versus the transfer factor plasmic, targets, and there's a whole list of them here. I'm not going to go through it, but I just want you to know it targets some things differently, including the Epstein-Barr as part of those. Okay? All right. All right. Thanks for the question, Vera. Good luck to you. Hello, Natalie. Do you have any? Oops, we answered that one earlier. Hello, Mary. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I've been on Doxy IV for the past 3 months. I had a very bad relapse with Lyme, Bartonella, and Babesia after 20 years. I made progress on the IV, but more recently, I seem to have stopped improving and regressed. I wanted to treat the Bartonella first, but I recently became very symptomatic with what I feel is Babesia after 3 months of IV. Weakness, air hunger, chills, sweats, etc. My physician wants to add rifampin because he feels it is Bartonella. He feels the Babesia is gone from the Doxy IV. How long do I wait to treat Babesia while on aggressive Bartonella treatment? So, I'm kind of reticent to get into a battle with another Lyme physician. So I just want to say that. I don't know all parts of your story, and I know you've done a good job of explaining it here. Generally, if I have, so first of all, IV doxycycline, the tetracyclines like doxycycline historically are used to treat Lyme. Okay. They also have been used historically to treat malaria, although by themselves they're not great. My experience is Doxy IV, although strong, itself is not going to be enough to have taken care of Babesia. So I don't know that I agree if that's what you're implying your physician has said here. I don't fully agree with that. And if I am going to be treating for Bartonella and Lyme first, I usually like to get people stable on their Bartonella treatment and have some of those Bartonella symptoms improving before I will add in treatment to cover Babesia. I sometimes will treat all 3 germs at the same time. So what that means to me is I want somebody on a Bartonella treatment usually for at least 2 months and having some improvements in Bartonella symptoms before I add in my Babesia treatment. Now the reason I do that is based on how I was taught. So one of the people I followed when I was first learning how to treat Lyme disease was Dr. Burrascano. Many of you may be familiar with him as one of the pioneers of Lyme disease treatment in this country. He's not treating Lyme right now. He's doing other things in his life. He still definitely is involved in the world of Lyme, though. And but one of his observations in his practice on Long Island is that in people that had Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, if he tried to treat the Babesia before going after Bartonella and getting it somewhat under control, it became harder to get rid of the Bartonella. That was his observation. And so I kind of have followed that in my own practice. There are times, though, I break that rule. If I've got somebody whose main symptoms are raging Babesia, I'm often going to go after that first along with Lyme before I go after Bartonella. Okay. So rules are made to be broken, right? And so even though I think he has a good observation that in the average person, it's better to go after Bartonella before Babesia, there are times I break that rule too. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Mary. Hello, Chris. Hello, Dr. Ross. For someone with Lyme who has recently contracted the COVID virus, 12 days, do you have any suggestions as to how to reduce the possibility of long COVID developing? Thanks. So what I would try to do is to keep, in terms of recovering from this and also making sure you don't get into too many immune system suppression from too many cytokines. One of the things I like to do is to have people take curcumin, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And also I like using glutathione, liposomal glutathione, the trifortified product by Research Nutritionals, 1 teaspoon once or twice a day. Keeping those cytokines under control can help limit this immune suppression that happens by excess cytokines triggered by any infection, whether that's Lyme or COVID, and I think may give a better chance of people not getting stuck with long COVID, okay? Unfortunately, other than that, I don't have another possibility for you here. If you had had an opportunity early on to be put on the Plaxavid, you might have wanted to do that, although again, it's not uniformly available at this point. More recent studies, a double-blind randomized study had come out showing that in fact, ivermectin is not that effective actually. When we finally start doing better studies, not the ones put on by the proponents of ivermectin, but actually independent studies that are not biased by the people, the cheerleaders that believe in ivermectin. Those unbiased studies seem to be supporting the idea that ivermectin is not your choice here, basically. Yeah, so I would do the anti-cytokine work, and for people that may be getting acute COVID, if you can get your hands on Plaxavid, I would wind up doing that. And again, I will say again, if you have not gotten vaccinated or not adequately boosted, get vaccinated, get adequately boosted. We have the BA2 strain now that's going to start working its way through, and the more ready you are to deal with it from an immune standpoint, the better off you're going to be. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Chris. Hello, Eileen. Thanks, Dr. Ross, for all the webinars. You're welcome. For so many of us, this is about the only way we receive treatment and advice for those diseases. I know. I wish this wasn't a hole I was having to fill, but I mean, part of the reason I do this is I know that for many, this is it. And so I hope I'm serving you well by doing that, and that you're getting useful information here as well, too. The Montana herbs, Utinea psittacuta, are stronger than the wildcraft herbs were. Is this something you have found also, or is it just me? I certainly have more herxing with these. You know, it's an interesting observation, because let me share with you why I'm saying that. So wildcraft herbs, Teresa used to make that brand, was doing a ratio of plant to alcohol in her extractions of 1 part plant to 3 parts alcohol. Okay, all right. The Montana Farmacy is doing more the traditional extraction method that most herbalists use, including what Buhner calls for, which is a 1 part plant to 5 parts alcohol extraction, meaning there is less plant and less plant chemicals per ounce of liquid. So in theory, the Montana Farmacy product should not be as strong, in theory, okay? Having said that, all of these extractions take place in different buildings. So the wildcraft herbs were processed and extracted on Victoria Island up in British Columbia, okay? And Montana Farmacy is doing theirs in Eureka, Montana, in the far northwest corner of Montana, up near the Canadian border. And, you know, it's a different environment. I mean, you would think from a north-south standpoint, they're about as far, but it's a different environment. And different environments can lead to different extractions taking place. So maybe it is stronger. In theory, though, I would think that it would be the other way around. So I wouldn't say it's just you. I haven't had other people reporting that to me. But again, it could be just that it's a different extraction place and locality that they're doing it. I would be interested in people writing to me if you've been using the Montana Farmacy products and you were previously using wildcraft herbs. I would be interested in hearing from people to let me know if you do think it's a stronger, Montana Farmacy ones are stronger. And I'd appreciate if you'd write to me about that. I'd be interested to learn that. My email, if you want to write that information to me, is docmarty, that's DOCMARTY, at martyrossmd.com. Okay? And I'll take that information and keep it in mind. So far from my patients, I'm using it here in the practice. I'm not hearing that as a common thing, but yeah. So anyway, those are my thoughts for you, Eileen. Good luck to you. Hello, Elliot. Let's see. Can I take azithromycin, Mepron, Artemisia with disulfiram? How about with fenbendazole? So fenbendazole is going to be used as an antiparasitic. First of all, everyone who wants to know what that is. I'm thinking about this. Okay, so the azithromycin, Mepron, Artemisia is a Babesia treatment. Disulfiram has weak abilities to help with Babesia, but I would never build a whole treatment around it. The disulfiram, as many of you know, is being used predominantly to treat people with treatment-resistant persister Lyme. We know from research that it's able to treat the dormant, non-growing form, hibernating form of Lyme. No researchers has ever been able to have done any studies that tell us it treats growing Lyme. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We just don't know. Disulfiram, although it is the new wonder drug that came out a few years ago and did give a lot of benefit to some people. There's 30% of people that might get in, based on studies, 30% of people might get into some form of remission on that. But 70% of people had a lot of complications in terms of side effects. So it's not always the go-to drug anymore in my practice because of that. There's a lot of neuropathy, psychiatric problems that develop, mood disorders, and so you have to be careful in using it. Can you use these together? You could in theory. If you were to do it, though, you've got to keep, I would keep tabs on the liver. So fenbendazole, disulfiram, and even the Mepron can lead to marked liver inflammation. So you'd want to be careful by following regular testing on the liver. Is this a combination I would do in my practice? Probably not. I think it's a pretty harsh regimen you'd be looking at here. But in theory, could it be done? Yeah, it could be done. But I definitely would want to make sure somebody's checking your liver pretty regularly on that regimen. All right? Good luck to you, Elliot. Hello, Sharon. Let's see. If my immunoblot showed positive IgM, CDC, and IGeneX, does it mean that at some time I have had the Lyme germ? I had a bullseye rash years ago. My friend has EBV and negative immunoblot, so no cross reaction. Could there still be a cross reaction in my case? Thank you. Okay, so in terms of antibody families, let me kind of have a discussion with you about this. So there are two types of antibody families we test for when we're looking at Lyme and even Epstein-Barr. We're usually measuring, look to see if you have either IgM antibodies or IgG antibodies, okay? IgM antibodies are what you develop when you first have an acute infection, and then they're supposed to go away, supposed to being the operative word. They're supposed to go away and get replaced by IgG antibodies. And those IgG antibodies, once you make them, should always be there. So finding IgG doesn't mean it's still in you. The best you can say with an IgG when you get it is it's been in you. It could still be in you and under control. It may be in you out of control. The best you can say with an IgG is it's been in you. All right. IgMs are a little tricky in Lyme because remember I said the word supposed to. All right. So in 15 years ago, over 15 years ago now, the NIH conducted 3 different clinical trials trying to figure out if they could see if longer term antibiotics would work in people that had previously been treated with short-term antibiotics in Lyme. All right. And there were various problems with these 3 studies. In the end, the NIH said, no, long-term treatment doesn't work, but we can really punch holes in what they did with their studies, and we could reinterpret their data to say it actually did help. But they concluded it didn't, and that's why no one, the infectious disease doctors all say long-term antibiotics don't work, okay? But one of the things they learned in those studies is they had to get people to enroll. And their enrollment criterion in those 3 different studies called for testing to be done, and also people to meet the criterion of having been treated before and to have positive CDC definition of Lyme, including positive Western blot testing. And what they found in those 3 different studies is that about 50% of people that had already been previously treated, were no longer in the acute period, had Igm antibodies they were still making. All right. So 50% of people that are no longer supposed to be making IgMs are still making them. All right. So that happens in Lyme. We don't know why. There's theories why it happens, but the truth is we don't know why it happens. So having an IgM may also mean old infection too, and that you just haven't been able to progress into making the positive IgGs. All right. So, so to answer your question here, I would say yes. This means that somewhere in the past you have had Lyme, and maybe if it's an IgM, you could also say maybe you just got a tick bite a month ago. I mean, that could be an explanation too, but that doesn't sound like your story here. Okay. In terms of your friend being Epstein-Barr virus, having Epstein-Barr and negative immunoblot, I assume you're wondering if you could have gotten it from your friend. I will say one thing here that may not exactly answer your question. So the immunoblot, if you by immunoblot, you actually mean IGeneX's immunoblot. IGeneX offers a Western blot and an immunoblot. Okay, all right. They're different kind of tests. So let me explain the difference here so you understand my next comment. Western blot, what is done with that, and the Western blot also is a technique that regular labs do. In a Western blot, basically, we grow a bunch of germs, Lyme germs in the lab, we kill them, and we take their proteins. And then we put those proteins on a test strip. We distribute them on the test strip based on what they weigh. And then we see if your blood has antibodies that attach to those proteins, all right? So one of the proteins, for instance, is 23, weighs 23 kilodaltons. We call that band 23, all right? All right. So kill living germs, take their proteins, see if antibodies stick on them, all right? Okay. What's done in the immunoblot is we take a bunch of Lyme germs, and we, from 8 different kinds of Lyme germs, and we find proteins from them. We study those proteins, and then we genetically program bacteria in the lab to produce those proteins, but we clean out pieces of those proteins, amino acid sequences that might also hold on to antibodies made against Epstein-Barr and antibodies made against human herpes virus type 6, okay? And so when you have antibodies stuck on a Lyme protein in an immunoblot, these use clean proteins that don't have a possibility of a false positive from having a virus infection that makes antibodies that happen to attach to the Lyme proteins, all right? In the Western blot, sometimes when you get a positive Western blot, there's a chance it's a false positive because the proteins used are not cleaned up proteins. They still include amino acid sequences that might hold on to Epstein-Barr virus antibodies and be falsely interpreted as being a Lyme antibody, all right? So I just want you to know that. Now I'm trying to figure out how that fits with your case, though. So the only way that your friend's EBV could have been given to you and then possibly change your Lyme test is if your Lyme test had been a Western blot, not an immunoblot. I know that may be confusing. I hope you understood that, but that would be my comment there. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Sharon. Hello, Elliot. Let's see. I listened to one of your previous Q&As, and you mentioned that you used to do fecal microbiota transplant when the FDA allowed it for more than just Clostridia. What were some of the other benefit people used to get from it other than, not ulcerative colitis? With the CDC, or what the FDA is allowing fecal microbiota transplants, poop transplants, to be used for is people that have treatment-resistant Clostridia difficile infections of their intestines. That is the only condition that the Food and Drug Administration now is allowing fecal transplants to be done for, just that condition alone, okay? So the FDA used to allow it to be used for things more than Clostridia difficile, not ulcerative colitis that you're right here. Let's see, what were some of the other benefits that people got? Okay, so fecal microbiota transplant, everyone, means putting poop back in your intestines. This can, usually you're going to need some kind of a donor. Donors should have been screened to make sure that they don't have parasites or other germs that they could give to you. And when you do it, you either can do it as an enema, you put the poop up in you through that, or you can take freeze-dried pills. They'll work their way down. The idea is to put healthy bacteria in your intestines that will take over for unhealthy bacteria that sometimes exist in people that have been on numerous courses of antibiotics, for instance, or people that have extensive yeast overgrowth in their intestines for which regular treatments don't work. So basically, the benefits of it is you get into normal bowel function again. You might get into normal immune function because the fecal microbiota that you're putting in there sends signals to the immune system to work better. Your microbiome in your gut is responsible for a number of things: digestion, clearing out toxins, sending signals to the immune system to work right, creating neurotransmitters for the brain to work right. I mean, there's a whole host of stuff that takes place with our microbiota. So anything that was dysfunctional because of the microbiota not being adequate can be corrected, in theory, by doing the fecal microbiota transplant, okay? All right, Elliot. Thank you. And good luck to you. Hello, Robert. Let's see. What do you suggest taking to try and support the liver and the kidneys? Is it normal to have low-level aching on the right side of your body? So the last part of your question, it's not normal to have low-level aching. For people with Lyme, a degree of aching on various parts of the body can be normal. But for the average person, no, I would say that's not normal. In terms of supporting the kidneys, to support the kidneys, there really isn't a supplement you take. What is useful to support the kidneys is to drink plenty of water to help the kidneys filter. And so, I usually tell people 6 to 8-ounce glasses a day of water for the average person usually is going to be sufficient for that, okay? In terms of the liver, I like using glutathione to support the liver. Glutathione is a master antioxidant made in every one of our organs. Its job is to improve damage, okay? And the other thing in the liver is used extensively for detox. When the body is under stress and the liver is having to work overboard, sometimes it can exhaust its glutathione supply. And so it's good to fill the gas tank back up again, if you will. So you can either do that by taking glutathione. And for that, I usually like using a product by Research Nutritionals, which is called Trifortify. It's a liposomal variety of glutathione. Liposomal means it's microscopically wrapped in fat to help increase its absorption, okay? And to do that, you would do a teaspoonful once or twice a day. Usually once a day is enough. Another option, though, is to take one of the building blocks for glutathione that the liver uses, and that's a chemical called, or a supplement called N-acetylcysteine. It's a 500 milligram pill. Usually I have people take 500 milligrams twice a day, and that can result in better liver production and therefore liver protection by creating more glutathione. Okay? Good luck to you, Robert. Hello, Sandra. Hi, Dr. Ross. Painful neuropathy, Lyme versus Bartonella. Which one more likely to cause it? How to treat? Can cat's claw cause tendon problems? Thank you. So I don't know that cat's claw, I haven't seen cat's claw cause tendon problems. I'll just say that. And I use a lot of it in my practice, so I have not seen that happen. All right. Now, there is a Marty Ross rule of medicine, though, which is anything can happen to anyone with anything. All right. So there are the common side effects, and then there's what happened in people. And every one of us has unique things that can happen because we have unique chemical reactions. Our bodies are only unique to us. The influences from the environment are unique to us. So there are things that are very unique that can happen from medications and herbs and supplements that only happen to us. So one thing to try is to stop your cat's claw, see if your tendon problem goes away, start it up again and see if it comes back. That's the only way you're really going to know, okay? Don't stop your cat's claw unless you talk it over with your healthcare provider to see what else they're going to substitute for it, though, okay? Talk it over with them is what I'm saying, all right? And then in terms of neuropathy, either Lyme or Bartonella can give you neuropathy, either one. And I don't think either one has a greater chance of causing it than the other. The treatment is kill your germs, okay? Figure out which ones you got, go after them. Number one, stop the insult on the nerves, all right? Number two, decrease inflammation of the nerves. And to do that, you use curcumin. I like using the liposomal product by Thorne called Mariva 500. It decreases inflammatory cytokines, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. The other thing I like to do is raise glutathione in those nerves because it can repair damage. And I like using the liposomal Tri-Fortify product by Research Nutritionals. For severe cases, I'll do a teaspoonful twice a day. And finally, the last thing I like to do is I like to repair the phospholipid membrane that is the nerve cell, makes up the nerve cell. And to do that, I like using a product by a Research Nutritionals called ATP 360. It rebuilds the nerve cell membrane. And it's the way you would do that product is 3 pills 1 time a day. Okay, so those 3 things, which would be curcumin, glutathione, ATP 360, and in addition, get your germs under control. Okay. The other thing you might want to consider working with your healthcare provider is figure out whether you've got too many yeast in your intestines. They release toxins that can be neurotoxic, can make neuropathy worse. And if things are really bad, also consider looking at heavy metal toxicity to make sure you don't have too much lead or mercury. That's also contributing to the neuropathy as well, too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Sandra. All right, everyone. That's it. It's been a good hour and a half here with you tonight. I've enjoyed it. I hope you learned some things that can help change your treatment and help you. Tomorrow morning, you will get an email from me. I'll spend part of this evening later after I exercise and take my 2 Basenjis out. I'll take some time to edit up the video for tonight. And then also tomorrow morning, I will prepare a synopsis of that. As you know, I always send that out in the email. Look for that email to come to you somewhere around 9 to 9:30 in the morning. In that email, you also have an opportunity to sign up for next week's webinar. And join me. Help me to reach people. I'm trying to help people with this illness. And I know there's a lot of people that just aren't getting good help out there. So if you think these are beneficial, that means probably other people will too. So if you would forward the email tomorrow morning to as many people as you think would get benefit, I'd appreciate that. They'll probably appreciate it too. And then also, when next time you get a sign up for the webinar, send that on to those same people as well too. All right. All right. Good night, everyone. Good being with you here tonight. And I wish you well.